Okay, so I'm not going to hopefully not have to stand too close to a microphone. I'm usually pretty loud. I get a lot of questions, and it's probably easiest to introduce a few things about myself. For those that you know who know me, know this about me, but I am mom to 4 boys. 5, my husband says, if you count him. And of that, my oldest is 17, so I have a 17, a 15, a 13, and a beautiful 8-year-old who is going to give me my run for my money. And a lot of what I get asked a lot is all about, how do you work? How are you a mom? How are you doing all of these things? And how do you still every day come in with a smile on your face? And I try to explain the same thing I just said to you. I have 4 children. So coming here is actually a break. But it's important to think about the fact of that's that whole saying of like, I live to work or I work to live. And neither one of those in my book are true. Because work is part of my life. I choose to do it. I could be a stay-at-home mom. My children are happy every day that I'm not. So am I. But I think when you start thinking about the different things and how they impact your life, the 5 things I want to say are the things that I live by. And there are also things that my team knows. I'm always the one that comes up with the crazy analogies. When we do open to buy and they're overbought, I'm always talking about how your mortgage isn't being paid and you want to put in a $40,000 pool. That doesn't make sense, right? So we have these kind of crazy things. So it's kind of from my perspective, which may seem a little off, but we'll see how we go with it. Oh, is it in? No? No, I sent it to Sean. Do you? Oh. Okay, well. That's going to be tougher. Okay, so there is a slide that goes with this, but I'll start different. So starting off first with the one question I get is work-life balance. So how do you balance work and home? And is it true that, you can't have kids and still be successful in your job? And what I always like to tell people is that work-life balance isn't real. There is no such thing. It's not this thing that you can actually chart out on a board and you can do a schedule and say in the morning I'm going to do this and then I'm going to go to work and I'm going to do this. Work-life balance, in my mind, it should actually be called work-life choices. And it's about guardrails. It's about setting for your life the things that you're willing to do, to what extent. So, right, you think about driving down the road and the point of a guardrail, if you've ever driven somewhere where on the other side of that guardrail you go down and you could fall pretty far, there's a reason that's there. It's to keep you from falling. This one's to keep you from going into the side of a mountain, maybe. But the point of a guardrail is to decide what point do you need to be on at any given time. So there are times in your life where you have to give a little bit more commitment to your job. You're working on a big project. You're really trying to get promoted. You're coming in and there's something you've just got to get done so you can get that piece off your mind. So there are times you're going to stay late. There's times you're going to come in early. There's times on a Saturday you're jumping on a computer and you might be working. You're doing that, but what you're doing is you're taking that time and making a choice that I'm going to spend my time to do that versus something you might do with your family. But how about that time when there's a great concert you want to go to and you got to bolt out of work at 3 o'clock? You balance your time at work, you figure out a way to make it happen, and you go enjoy that great concert. So you've made the choice that today I'm going to sacrifice a couple hours I could be spent working on something to go to this concert because it's what I want to do for my life. I want to go see my child in a performance. That's really super important. I'm not going to sacrifice that for my job, but my job's not going to ask me to do that. My job's going to let me at times ebb and flow. So really work-life balance is doing that. A book, and I've read actually a lot of books being a mom, trying to think of, hey, maybe this is real. Every book I read tells you, make a choice, and then they still say there's a balance. So it is about choices in my mind. So when you think about the second thing is assume good intentions. So it's probably the hardest thing you ever do. So a lot of us here work with vendors, or you might work with partners, or you work with people outside of Belk, and you have probably in your career. And there's those days, and I'll tell you what, I have some very, very aggressive vendors, to say the least. I work with the beauty industry, so they're always right, and the retailer's always wrong. So we've assumed that. But when you think about it, and you think about the people that you're working with, if you were them, would you do the same thing? Would you ask for the same things? Right? So you start thinking about turning the tables and assuming good intentions. They're trying to drive their business. You're trying to drive your business. Also think about the people you work with. Have you ever walked in on any given day and said, today I plan to screw up? Right? Have you ever decided today it's going to be a really bad day. I'm going to sit at my desk. I'm not going to do anything and I'm totally going to get in trouble for it. Or I'm going to do that report you asked me to do and I'm absolutely going to screw it up. So when you get it, we get to have another hour conversation about how I screwed it up. right? You plan that, right? No one plans that. I mean, there's probably those guys once in a while, or those gals that are ready to move on from a company. We'll keep them off. But the point is that you have to assume that everyone's trying their best. They took that moment to try their best. So if you're thinking about how I'm going to approach you, and we have a moment where something didn't go right, because that's reality, right? How many things are going to go wrong in a given day? If everything went right, you'd probably be bored on a given day. So something's going to go wrong. How you approach it and how you have that conversation is always starting with, I assume you had a good intention. I assume you tried your best. What caused you to have that little hurdle? What can we do to fix it? So thinking about how you're approaching it is making you human. It's making you realize that I make mistakes too, and when I do, I meant the best. I really did. So when you think about perception, it's my other favorite one. Think about how you want people to perceive you, right? So a lot of people are saying, well, perception's not reality. It's not, but it's the illusion of reality. So what people see in you every single day, whether it happens to be if I'm out with my kids and I'm out shopping with 4 boys, how I look, how I talk, how I treat my children. If I were to yell at one of my children in public in front of you, the first thing you're thinking, wow, she beats her children. That lady. And then some people will be like, oh, bless her heart, she has 4 children. What was she thinking? And then there's the other person that says, aren't you going to have a girl? And then that's when I get aggressive. So when you think about how people are perceiving you and they're watching your interactions, that goes at home, but it also goes at work. So how I sit in a meeting and how I talk to someone that's approaching me on something. If I'm always the person with my door closed, or you're like, hey, do you have a minute? I'm like, no, get out. That your perception of me is I'm not. When I say I'm a leader that has an open door policy, I was kidding apparently. So when you start to think about how you're responding and you're reacting, I always tell I generally am always in a good mood. I'm generally pretty talkative. I'm generally just a happy person. So that my team, the people I work with, assume that I'm pretty much in a good mood, I'm happy. That's a nice way to keep me in a place where that people can perceive me in the way I want them to see me. So keep that in mind. Also, think about the fact of when you say how do you want people to perceive you, it's how you look on the outside but the inside. So think about that. We talk about Toastmasters and being able to present yourself. Think about that when you're ready to have that conversation. How do I look? How do I feel? And how am I going to communicate? And what's that going to get across? And then thinking about don't biting off more than you can chew. Now, I just told you I had 4 children, and you're all probably thinking, well, she didn't think that through. And so when you start thinking about biting off more than you can chew, and I always say that there's a moment where you can fake it till you make it, and then there's a moment when it's too late. Right? Because now you're standing in front of the CEO having to give an answer one day. You can't fake it, right? So when you think about biting off more than you can chew, think about what leads you there. So we talk about careers, right? Don't try to grow too fast. Don't try to take on more than you can do until you're ready. Make sure you inside feel really good, because then you shouldn't have to convince somebody else how great you are. You should be able to say, here are the things I did, how I did it, and how I got there. So keep in mind. And then number 5, be you. Keep in mind, don't ever let anything you do, whether it be personally or in business, ever make you do something that's not you. So I'm not going to be the person that works in the grocery industry. It's just not what my passion is, right? So do things that you're passionate about. Do things that make you happy, and whether it's in personal or in business. And then number 6 is know how you want to be. Right? And I just said number 6. So if anybody was counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I said it was 5 things. But what happens in life every time you think something's going to happen? You get a curveball, right? So you know the destination you were going in. You knew I was going to talk about 5 things, but I went to 6. The point is, be ready. Be ready for the curveball that gets thrown at you, whether it's something personal and you wind up in a life where you need to do something different, or it's in your career and you're going in a different direction, like they put you in IT for a couple years and you had to learn what they were talking about. So think about it, roll with it, make some friends, and just remember that as you're doing this all along, it's still who you want to be, and how you approach it is how successful you'll be in doing it. So that's mine.